You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium Games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and/or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Beyond the Verse, Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Sulyce. And on today's episode, we are covering just a little bit of the latest news in our game and CIG's development. It was a very, very quiet week. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, we should be okay with that. It is unrealistic for us to expect there to be hype, new content, up-to-date news every single week. And so quickly, we'll go through this week in Star Citizen's initial release on Monday, a quick update on the Overdrive Initiative and how to recoup or obtain your Xenothreat armor and your F7A free upgrade at the end of the event. We'll get into the latest build of the EPTU Patch 323, the patch notes, and then we will end with both the Inside Star Citizen episode from this week and the portfolio input or the lore drop on the Mirai Fury. If this is a big if, I'm going to try to get us actually into 323's EPTU. It's the closest thing to streaming you're ever going to get from me. But at the end of the episode, I'm going to try to get us in there and kind of demonstrate some of the features. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't, it's because Star Citizen happened and I've decided to edit it out because it failed miserably. So stand by. So if this is a 45-minute episode, it didn't happen. If it's an hour-and-a-half episode, it did happen. Well, I hope this finds everybody well. Hope you had a good last, 7 days since our recording. Last week's episode was an amazing one. If you haven't taken the time or had the opportunity to listen to it, I had Space Tomato on and we discussed a lot of different materials, predictions for 323 for the rest of 2024, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all of it, right? It was a very, very, very good episode. And like we do at the end of every episode, we did ask a poll specifically about matchmaking. That ended up being a gold nugget coming out of last week's episode. So I asked the poll, should there be matchmaking in Star Citizen? And out of the votes, it was split literally right down the middle. 50% yes, 50% no, and that's over 8 votes. The reason why this question is so important to me, again, if you listen to the last episode, you kind of know where I'm going with this, but having been part of the New World effort, the launch, the development, production, whatever you want to call it, we initially launched without matchmaking, and it ended up being a pain point for what we call organizations, what some games call guilds, companies is what New World calls them. So they're companies. If you don't have a company, you weren't getting into some of the larger content. And so luckily, AGS or Amazon Game Studios decided to roll it out. But there's always this debate on who does it the best. Who has the best matchmaking? Is it a requirement? Honestly, yeah. Yeah, we're a bunch of weirdos in the gaming community. We're all a little unique and strange in our own ways. We're not all type A outgoing personalities. So this social aspect is always going to be a little bit of a dynamic. So I think there should be some sort of matchmaking in every game that claims to be a multiplayer game. But who does it the best? What is the most non-intrusive matchmaking process? And I don't think I've ever landed on a good experience. Now there's tolerable experiences, but as far as a good experience, this feels right, this feels organic. I have not discovered that yet. And so I had asked Space Tomato, that question. We had talked about it. Some good ideas coming out of that conversation about actually going to maybe an orbital station or a Lagrange point that is close to the objective or close to the event. So if Xenothreat is happening around the Pyro jump point, maybe you have to go to the Pyro jump point and sign up there. It's armistice. You're not going to hit any issues there, hopefully, knock on wood. But you sign up there, and then you're able to find your group and deploy from that Lagrange site. I think that's a great method. It's in-game. It's, involving. It feels organic. I think that's probably the best idea. So that was the poll. And then, of course, we always follow up the poll with an actual Q&A. And so I specifically asked, if you believe there should be matchmaking in Star Citizen, how should it be handled? We had 2 responses. The first one from Dakota Riley, quote, "I believe there should be to an extent, mainly for new players with less than a specific amount of hours in the game and any vetted guides who are assisting a new player." Okay, so left and right limits, some guardrails proposed by Dakota. For me, it's like all or nothing. I don't think you put, my personal opinion, you're not wrong, Dakota. I think that's a good point. For me, in my personal opinion, it's all or nothing. You either have matchmaking and it's open to this general, reception. Because even though I'm the org leader sole provision, 120 plus members, and we're very active, I'm not always playing with my org. There are some times I'm playing in the middle of the day, like Saturdays and Sundays when my kids are sleeping. Hopefully, all fathers out there, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I usually play during the day on Saturdays and Sundays, so I don't always have this massive group to go play with. So even I would take advantage of being in matchmaking. So for me, it's all or nothing. The next quote from Nick, quote, maybe as a looking for a group tool, so LFG, and baked into the contracts app, like putting out a contract for people to join your contract, may it be on a pro level or a more casual style group. So somewhat similar to what me and Space Tomato had mentioned, having this kind of in-game experience, but Nick's proposal is in the contracts manager, which I feel is a little bit less organic than actually physically going somewhere. And then I say that in 2024 in real life, we have phones with applications, Discord, we have ways of signing up for, events virtually. So do you have to go to a Lagrange site to do it? I mean, if you don't have to do it in 2024, you probably don't have to do it in 2954. It's just an interesting conversation. And it's kind of a hard one for producers, for developers to figure out. I personally like the idea of going to a Lagrange site. And you're physically there. Maybe you set up shop, eat some hot dogs, double decker, right? Get some drinks in your system, load out, outfit, and just hold fast until your group is ready. And you're all leaving from the same point, so it would be easier to, fly out in a multi-cruise ship, etc. So I could probably talk about matchmaking for hours. More than likely, you don't want to hear me do that. So let's move on. On Twitter, I usually go out and I ask additional questions. I only really did one question in the last 7 days. Work's been insane. It's not a podcast about my work, but I didn't really get to engage as much as I normally do, or as much as I would like this past week. So I got the one question in, and I actually asked this on like Saturday, the day after my podcast with Space Tomato. And it was an interesting train of thought. So I started thinking, like, Saturday morning, I got up, got my kids ready. They have swim class that they go to. And so I'm getting them ready, and I'm like, man, it'd be really cool. It'd be really awesome if I could, yes, we have Discord, Roger, but if I could engage with Star Citizen outside of the, being in front of my PC, outside of actually being in the game, being in Spectrum, it'd be amazing if I could monitor my ships, check my fuel level. And then my mind started going down this rabbit hole. As you can probably expect at this point, of you knowing me as well as you do. I started going through, man, what about org play? What about when we have javelins and we have the Soul Provision Javelin and it's, chilling up in space. And we've got, 80 org members that use that as their bed logs and they're, coming in and out of the game through the Javelin. I've lost all control if I'm not in game. So is there a way to control my ship outside of the game? I'm thinking like access to rooms, access to files, the inventories, ways to unlock lock, ways to open up doors. Maybe engineering needs to be addressed in some form or fashion outside of the game. And my mind immediately went to World of Warcraft's Armory, not the new companion app, but the old Armory app where you were able to pull up your character, see your equipped items, and it was an app that was on your phone. And I remember having that years and years and years ago, and just how cool it was to bring your accomplishments with you outside of the game. So my friends at school that also played WoW, we were able to show pictures of our characters. Hey, look what I got. This is the newest item from the raid last night. And that was just a really cool dynamic. Well, now you've got the World of Warcraft companion where you're able to do like mini jobs, and it might have changed. I haven't played World of Warcraft in like 3 or 4 years, probably more than that. But you were able to get into this app and put, NPCs into missions, and they would go and do missions and come back in 30 minutes to an hour. And you would get your, inventory or your items. And then when you would log into game, all that would be ready for you. So it really brought the game to you outside in your real life. I asked the question. Actually, I didn't even ask the question. I stated, Star Citizen should begin work on an external app for your phone to manage ships, manage inventory, anything in your hangar, like all the hangar elements, etc. And I think World of Warcraft Armory. And then I kind of joked around and said, not enough resources? I'll product manage that. Say when. Because inevitably what happens is the response is, I would rather them finish the game first. This game's been out for, or it's been in development for 11, 12 years. Just please finish the game. I get it. Let's go ahead and bypass that obvious comment. I get there's not enough resources. I get we'd rather them finish Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. Roger, tracking. But this one kind of went not viral. It was an engaging post. We had 2.6K views, over 360 votes. Here's how it fell. The options were, I need this now, I nice to have later on, and I wouldn't use it. So here we go. In first place, a nice to have later on, 45.7%. I need this now was 39.9%, and I wouldn't use it 14.4%. I would love to hear from the I wouldn't use it, because I do think that there are some practical instances. Maybe I am on a work trip to Seattle and I'm engaged in Amazon stuff, right? But my org hits me up, hey, we're about to do this XYZ event, or hey, we need access to this room, or hey, give us, give an officer captain permissions. I don't even know what that looks like in the future. I don't know what org play looks like in the future for Star Citizen, but ways to be able to have that command and control from distance would be amazing. So, all right. Don't want to belabor that too much. I thought it was a really good question. What are your thoughts? And this will be a question in the Q&A. What are your thoughts on having an external app to engage outside of Spectrum, which again is a URL based, or call the app Spectrum, right? An iOS or an Android Spectrum app. Very cool. All right, here we go. We're getting into today's content. Again, I expect this to be done here in the next 15 to 20 minutes. It's going to go, well, that's not true, because Inside Star Citizen alone is 15 minutes. So let's say 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Again, we're going to do This Week in Star Citizen and a quick update on the Overdrive Initiative, the latest build in 3.23. We're going to watch Inside Star Citizen together, and we're going to end with the lore drop of the Mirai Fury. And hopefully, we'll get into 3.23. All right, happy Monday, everyone. Alpha 3.23 is now available to Wave 2 testers. we'd like to take a moment and to thank all of you who have taken the time to dive in and check out all of the new content on the PTU. Our team continues to hammer away at remaining issues to help improve stability, and if all goes well, we'll open to more testing waves soon. Quick hot take, pretty damn sure by the time I end this podcast or later today, or maybe even over the weekend, we'll see Wave 3 or 323 will go live in the PTU this weekend, and I'll explain why here in a second. As I die on podcast. All right, back to the article. In other news, the response to CitizenCon 2954 has been nothing short of extraordinary. With tickets now available, we've already exceeded attendance records from any previous Star Citizen gathering to date, and we expect to fully sell out soon. As we speak, our team is gathered in Manchester, meticulously planning what's shaping up to be our best show to date. We can't wait to see you this October, when they will more than likely release more information on Squadron 42. That was my own little ad. That's probably why it's going to be the biggest show to date. Back to the article. Speaking of gatherings, Chad McKinney and I, which is Jake Bradley, joined in on the fun at Bar Citizen Chicago. Chicago. I say Chicago. It's kind of funny to make fun of the accent. I love you all. You are my best friends. Chicago. Over the weekend, more than 100 of you showed up for the good food, great discussions, and a heap of giveaways. As always, these events really charge us up for the journey ahead. Thank you for coming out. We're excited to share more information on the continuation of the Bar Citizen World Tour very soon. Stay tuned. And then here is literally the bullet point schedule for this week. As you can see, a very, very, very light week. I'm going to keep sharing my screen. We're going to keep moving. Here's the Overdrive Initiative. We're still in Mission 5. That has not changed. Mission 5 will extend beyond the release of 323. That has not changed. Side note, missions 1 through 4 will end the moment 323 comes out. So go do missions 1 through 4 now, ASAP. Get them out of the way. Cool story. Last night, we had the Soul Provision Org Night. There was 11 of us. We all got together. We did several of Mission 3's incursion to knock that out. We did all of Mission 4. Got everybody in our org, the engaged kind of consistent players or attendees. We got them all caught up, and we're all ready to go into Mission 5 and to 323. So if you're not part of an organization, I'm pretty damn sure like the SPK portion of Mission 4 is damn near impossible without an org. Join an org. Join us in Soul Provision. We are not going to cap our player count, right? Join us, become part of the discussion, even if you just want to reside in our Discord. It's for both Soul Provision and for this podcast. So join us. Let's get you caught up if we're able to as fast as possible so you can participate in this. But I say all of this because the new drop or the news that came out of this was a little bit of an update on how to obtain your goodies. So here we go. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to skip through most, if not all of this. Here we go. Overdrive Initiative. I'm just going to read this little blurb verbatim. This is the new piece, if you will. Overdrive Initiative is a series of connected missions leading up to the explosive Xenothreat global event. Over the next few weeks, regular new content will task brave pilots with supporting the Civilian Defense Force as it battles a growing terrorist threat to the system. All current missions are available in the contract manager of your Mobiglass. Mission 5 is the last mission before the final Xenothreat assault, which is scheduled to begin soon after Alpha 323 goes live. That is old news. Here's the new news. Rewards. F7A Mark II Hornet upgrade. All players that complete missions 1 through 5 of Overdrive Initiative will receive a complimentary upgrade from the F7C Mark II Hornet to the F7A Mark II with the release of Alpha 323. So not when you finish Mission 5. All the questions I get asked of like, hey, I finished Mission 5 and I don't have my F7A upgrade. It's not until Alpha 323 goes live. All right, back to the article. When the new patch launches, this is new. Listen up. When the new patch launches, just accept the mission titled Overdrive Initiative Reward, and you'll be granted your upgrade and a free 7-day rental. So it's going to be a mission. When you log in, it's going to come across your HUD. It's going to flash at you. Left bracket, which, yes, the key bindings went back to the brackets, not Y and N for 323. So you're in a left bracket to accept it, and you will get your upgrade and your 7-day rental. Okay, the Xenothreat Armor. The Xenothreat Medium Armor will be granted to all players who complete each Overdrive Initiative mission, including the following Xenothreat Assault, which is Mission 6 and Alpha 323. Okay, so to recap, it's once you log into 323, you're going to get your F7A Alpha Hornet, but you're not going to get your Xenothreat Armor until the completion of Mission 6. You heard it here. You've read it on the website. You've heard me say it on podcast. This is going to make a lot of people confused. So Xenothreat Armor is the very last thing that you get upon completing Xenothreat Mission 6. Okay, back to the article. Make sure that you complete the Overdrive Initiative missions 1 through 5 before the Xenothreat event starts after the release of Alpha 323. Important note. Players must complete all 5 Overdrive Initiative missions before the Xenothreat Assault begins, as the missions will not be available during the global event. For more information, there's an Overdrive Initiative FAQ on Spectrum. So there you have it. Now, I'm going to react to the armor choice. I would have much rather this been the heavy armor that has the badass like helmet with the Xenothreat like painting etched on the front of that helmet. So that would have been so much cooler. But this is the Orc Mark X. It looks like the Orc Mark X. I'm pretty damn sure it is, with like the red flare and the emblems of Xenothreat all over. So it's still good. I wish it would have been the heavy armor that you see kind of a limited of. Although yesterday at SPK, there were a lot of the limited heavy armor enemies. So we had plenty to loot from last night. So there you go. No updates to the current mission, some cool, sexy imagery, very nice. Nothing else has changed. All right, I'm going to clear my throat, and we're going to get on to the next. Alrighty. If you're on YouTube, sorry you had to see that. All right, let's get out of Overdrive Initiative. Let's get into the current build of 323. Okay, this is why earlier in the podcast, I made mention of, I'm pretty sure like Wave 3 is this weekend, or straight to the PTU is this weekend. Because these notes are getting super, super short. So for this, the testing feedback and focus, 2 items, stability, and they just summed everything up in 323 features and gameplay. So historically you would see a litany of 10, 15, 20 items, and now you've got 2 bullet points with a list of known issues, and even the features gameplay, it's locations, gameplay, and core tech. So historically, whether it's patch notes, monthly reports, when things start to get shorter and more succinct, that is a good indicator that they're wrapping things up or they're ready to move on to the next build. So you've heard it here first, maybe you've heard it from somebody else, but pretty sure that we are moving on to the next phase of 323. So again, the testing and feedback of the current Wave 2 of the EPTU stability, performance, bug fixing, and 323 features and gameplay. The features and gameplay. Locations. So level of detail in the distribution centers, performance, lighting, and audio polish. It's great. They're already beautiful. Can't wait to see more. Adjusted distribution center AI population to be more civilian focused instead of security. Good, because when I visited the DCs, I had like everybody pull their pistol on me and attack me. It's probably not realistic for a distribution center. Gameplay. IFCS master modes allow canceling master modes swapping at any point. Dynamic crosshairs, hit markers, sound effects, polish, and then we get into the core tech. Added Vulkan reshade to EAC whitelist, further server performance, made network performance optimizations, made further water sim improvements, put in further updates to help smooth out all NPCs jittering, and updated control images for 3.23. Fixed 6 client crashes, fixed 7 server crashes, fixed a Riva Tuner Vulkan client crash, and fixed 2 AMD specific Vulkan client crashes. So again, I'm not going to belabor this too much. Like, if you want to go this direction with it, they're in the polish phase of 3.23. I think everything that's going to come out has been tested. It's been thoroughly, run through the gambit. But here is how I'm viewing the timeline. All right, you've got to move backwards from Invictus launch week, in my opinion. You go from Invictus launch week and backwards plan. So Invictus launch week are the last 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of May. I am so sorry you're having to listen to that on podcast. All right, so the last 2 weeks of May, that is 1, 2, 3. There's 3 weeks. There's 3 weeks left until Invictus launch week. So you've got to run this through PTU. I know it's been through the EPTU, it's the early or the experimental PTU. I imagine you'd have to throw 3.23 in front of the PTU to open it up for literally everybody to go test break. And that would be about a week, maybe worth of testing. So it's either in the next week or at the very, very latest, the next 2 weeks. Because once we transition into Invictus launch week, my prediction is that it's going to be 1 week of 3.23 live before Invictus launch week, because I think launching both at the same time, which is kind of what we experienced around 3.18 last year. Actually, it might have even been 3.19. One of those released right around Invictus launch week. I'm pretty sure, I hope, that they have learned their lesson. Let's throw out a freaking patch before, right, a major event like Invictus launch week. So I think it's going to go through the PTU for a week, hopefully a little bit longer, and then we'll get into Invictus launch week live 3.23 Xeno threat, and the whole convergence at the last episode of Beyond the Verse talked about, right? Everything kind of happening in the month of May. May's going to be insane. Okay, let's keep going. Inside Star Citizen. All right, this is called Commander Gander. So there's a lot of updates beyond 3.23, beyond the persistent universe and everything that you're going to be seeing in that realm. We've got Arena Commander. And if you want your controlled environments, if you want to have as many frames per second as possible while flying, Arena Commander is your dedicated resource to do all of that. The content creators that you watch on YouTube that are demonstrating ships and they're showing off, the beauty of the new ships that are coming out, the F-7C Hornet Mark II. These are all done in Arena Commander's free fly mode for the most part. They don't do it in the PU for many reasons. But Arena Commander is a dedicated resource. It runs smoothly, and there's a lot of new features that are coming with 3.23. So to the article, share my screen for those of you on YouTube. The article, it's a quick little 2 or 3 sentences. Which of the upcoming Arena Commander updates are you most excited about? Join us today to explore new maps, racetracks, experimental modes, custom lobbies, and the first iteration of engineering gameplay coming in Alpha 3.23. So without further ado, let's get into this episode.
Did you know that Alpha 3.23 doesn't just have a ton of neat feature updates for the persistent universe, but it's also got an entire host of new tracks, modes, fixes, and more for Arena Commander? Well, it does. Here's Arena Man Duncan Bunting himself to tell us more. I'm just giving everybody nicknames now. You only have 8 minutes to explain all the Arena Commander things coming in Alpha 3.23.
Forson's taking half of it. So with... all right.
7 minutes, 50 seconds.
What? For 323, we've got a bunch of new maps. We've got 5 new racetracks coming to Arena Commander. First, we've got the Skyscraper, which is across the urban scape of Area 18.
And it looks
It's actually
amazing.
a map from the PU, which already has the holographic sign set up. So this was a fun one for our teams because we had to kind of mix Arena Commander and PU together for this race.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Kaplan Circuit. Kaplan Circuit is in Orison, and it is a very long but kind of straight and still challenging map. I don't think I've ever raced it without crashing after the first turn. Next up, we've got another map on Orison. It's the Dunlow Derby. Now, this was actually a community challenge from last year when the community team reached out to you guys and challenged you to get the best lap. We've now formalized it and put it into Arena Commander. Fourth, we've got Lorville Outskirts. Now, this is right beside Hurston. And the reason we're getting it into this patch now is because we've got streaming, and it was actually our first ever map that we set up with streaming technology on Arena Commander. The race is across this mining forge facility that's behind Lorville, so you're ducking down and under buildings, between rocks, in and out of pylons. It's a really closed-in, high-G race in low atmosphere on a heavy planet. The 5th map is called the Stanton Pyro Jump.
I can't wait for this one. So this one's out at the Pyro Stand Jump Point. So that whole highway system that you've heard me talk about, all the advertising and marketing, you're racing in that area, and it looks unbelievable.
Point. It's actually something you guys helped test, and it was implemented for the Master Mode's experimental mode for Classic Race. This map was created so that we kind of want to see the difference between players racing SCM versus Nav mode and whether they switch between them. And the map just worked so well as our second 0G map for Arena Commander. We wanted to add it into Classic Race now that Master Modes is part of the entire game. As a bonus, we're getting Miner's Lament, which was a Classic Race map, enabled in all flight modes, so you'll be able to experience Swarm or any dogfighting mode on Miner's Lament, which is a really awesome map to experience
Shields hit.
with the new Master Mode speeds because of all the cover and debris everywhere. It really makes for a kind of a unique experience compared to our other maps. So let's get into the new experimental modes for 323. Starting with Engineering. We've got 3 game modes coming. I'm gonna let Torsten tell you about it.
So we introduce, with the help of Duncan's team, an experimental mode in the Arena Commander, where we have 3 different modes. It's a duel, it's a 1v6 fight, and it's the free flight. So in the first mode, in the 1v1 mode, you, as your group, are sitting in an A2, and you are facing another group of players in another A2. Ideal crew is 6 players. You fire at each other and try to destroy the other ship, while some of the players might be running around and repairing any damage that has been dealt. The purpose of our test, we focus on the time to kill, where we want to see what a difference the corresponding engineering team on the ship itself does. So we are looking at the time for how long the items actually survives, how long the fuses survive, how long the A2 itself survives, how long the players survive in that scenario. In the second mode, you are again using the A2, but this time you are not fighting another A2. This time you are fighting a group of Gladii. So the difference is that there are multiple attacks.
Okay, hold on. Did y'all hear that? Gladii. Not Gladys's, not Gladii. Gladii. And I say that because our organization was just debating that a couple of days ago on what to call multiple ships. So the Gladii. You heard it from CIG.
So you basically have to coordinate your defense. But in addition to that, we are also looking into a different sized weapons, a different loadout. The A2, for example, is fully energy weapon, versus the Gladius actually has a ballistic that has different penetration values in comparison to the disclaimer. So we put some penetration values right now on the energy weapon, which is not the plan right now for the actual release, but for our testing purposes we needed to put some values there. The difference is it's multiple attackers with a different type of weapon set, with different type of ammunition, that has a different impact on the ship items inside the A2. We are hoping to learn how much longer the A2 survives in this scenario versus multiple attackers. So if we suddenly gain an advantage over multiple attackers once an engineer is actually running around and fixing items or doing some maintenance that is required. The third mode is free flight. In free flight, you basically spawn any ship that is valid for the mode. You can familiarize yourself with the base principles of the engineering gameplay, so you can experiment with the engineering console, figure out a balanced power management. We currently already have a very limited power management available to you, where it's just about turning items on so that you are off and on to get into a positive or equal balance so that you don't deplete your battery. Also meant to be for you to help you orientate yourself for the other gameplay scenarios, so that you know where to look for the relays, where to look for the fuses, where to look for the corresponding items. So it's basically the learning practice room for the actual modes. So the intention of this test is a very focused, where we want to learn about the time to kill, not only for the ship, but also, well, actually mainly for the items. It is not the full engineering gameplay loop, so we don't showcase the full energy balance, energy management, coolant management, all the other resources that you will have. So it's just about how damage is applied, what are the tactical choices that player make, how much time it takes to kill the components, how much time it takes to kill your opponent. That's it.
Jared, how are we doing on time? Do we still have time to tell them about the other stuff?
Hurry, do it fast.
What is the other stuff? So for Free 23, we've also got custom lobbies coming to Arena Commander. Now, this was previously called private matches many years ago, and it's finally coming back in the form of custom lobbies. The reason it's called custom is we've got a bunch of custom settings for you guys, and this is something we're super excited to expand upon. So I want to see you guys team up with your mates, go into custom lobbies, feedback on our feedback threads of what custom settings you would like, and we'll implement them. The other big feature is obviously streaming, which I mentioned earlier. This is really awesome tech that we finally got into Arena Commander, and it's going to let us bring quite a lot of fun stuff to you guys fairly soon. Characters in VoIP is another update coming. VoIP we're enabling in Arena Commander as well with mute and unmute functions. And your PU character is now playable in Arena Commander, so no more running about as this default bold character. You can now customize your character and bring it into Arena Commander, do whatever you want. There's also changes to Gun Rush, Pirate Swarm, general team balance. For Gun Rush, we've been working closely with the weapons team to get them the feedback that they want, so they've been helping us set up new weapon lists. One of the big Gun Rush changes is that we're adding multiple weapon lists so that we can turn on and off different weapon lists for you guys to play throughout the patch. For Pirate Swarm, the Javelins are getting replaced with 2 Idrises with a lot of firepower coming after the event that happened in 322.2. For Team Balance, we're addressing some of the challenges we've had with it recently. For 322, we tried out some stuff, and for 323, we think we've came up with the best solution. It's going to keep you playing with your teammates and have the best experience. And finally, let's talk about achievements.
Target destroyed.
So there's 2 achievement updates coming with this patch. The first one, you're able to play Endless Vandal Swarm. If you reach Rave 25, you're going to get the new Vandal Aggressor badge. Next up, we've got the 99th Test Squadron badge. Now, this is a badge that was added for 322, and it's getting an update for this patch. For this badge, you just have to play every experimental mode throughout the patch. So that's most of the stuff coming to Alpha 323 with Arena Commander, but there's a couple more things. Check out the patch notes when they drop, and be sure to check out Arena Commander. There's a lot of exciting things coming to the PU, but we do have some surprises still left, and did that work? I felt like that was way too short. I did one quick sentence.
No, you're good.
Play Arena Commander.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that there's 5 new maps for racers and a whole new mode for grab love bikes on the way. That the next experimental modes for Arena Commander are just a narrow slice of the engineering gameplay focused on time to kill for ships and components alike. And that private lobbies, they're back. And they're called custom matches, and they'll be waiting for you when Alpha 323 drops. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you. We'll see y'all here next week.
Boom. Love it. So Arena Commander, first off, the private lobbies, or the custom matches, whatever they're calling them now. Literally just watched it and having a brain fart. That is important because of the different events that, I say content creators or orgs want to do together without the influence or the obstruction of the PU, right? Things that can happen in the PU. I'm reminded last year there was like a major community event or content creator event. It was going to be a 30v30v30 tank royale. I had Blasphemous on a couple of episodes after that event went down or failed to go down, and had him kind of discuss what happened. But basically just Star Citizen happened, and then they were griefed and weren't able to conduct their mission. Well, having an Arena Commander private match or custom lobby is perfect for that. Go do your thing. Do your thing outside of the PU. Don't put 90 people in 3 organizations into one server. That will never bode well. Same thing with I was part of Authentic Young's New Year celebration aboard her 890 jump. Well, that's great, but the things that could go wrong in the PU was definitely an ever-present, threat. So having that in a custom lobby, would have been a good experience as well. So I think that piece of Arena Commander is important to have in a game like this. I love the Area 18 map. Like, that racing map looks amazing. So Area 18 and unfortunately Lorville have really, really, really great skylines. Lorville, you just can't see 10 feet in front of you because it's literal shit. But having these racing racetracks around places that you see every day in the PU is really exciting. Like the 2 that they showed that are in the Crusader platforms. Awesome. Like that just seems right to me. And it's so much better to have the racing and the explosions and the death out in Arena Commander than it is for you to do all that in the PU. So I see extreme value in Arena Commander. I need to get into it more often, but some of the most fun that our organization has had is just shooting the shit inside of Arena Commander. The Gun Rush is an amazing, amazing match, or an amazing, FPS experience. So super awesome. And with that, we'll get into the last segment, and then again we will try to jump into 323. We'll see what happens, but this is the portfolio drop that was on Tuesday for the Mirai Fury. This was also part of the Jump Point 1103. Let me scroll down and yep, Jump Point 1103. I was right. So you might have already read this before, but like we do in every episode, we try to hit up on the lore because lore is important to us, and it should be important to you as well. So I haven't done this in a while, but let's set the mood. Maybe not dramatically appropriate for reading about a ship, but here we go to the article. When MISC CEO Irina Ajay first saw the Fury prototype, she spent over an hour slowly circling the ship and assessing the compact fighter from every angle. Quote, "It feels both distinctly MISC and something all its own," she told the MISC board. Quote, "I'm convinced we should make it, but I don't think MISC should." With those words, Ajay proposed a solution to a debate that had bitterly divided the company's board of directors between members who believed MISC should focus on industrial ships and those hoping to expand the brand. CEO Ajay had never taken a side until the day she proposed a solution that would satisfy both: the creation of the sub-brand Mirai. Meaning future in Japanese, the name Mirai honors the settlers of Centauri, home of MISC's headquarters, and embodies its goal of creating the next generation of ships. The creation of a sub-brand also allows MISC to retain its cherished industrial identity while providing the company an outlet for experimentation. Ajay argued that the Fury should launch the sub-brand and convinced the board by showing them what the Fury team was working on next. The creation of the Mirai sub-brand shocked many within the industry and marked the most significant change to the company in decades. Beyond industry, MISC may be known for its industrial ships, but its desire to develop other variants goes back to 2833. Less than 20 years after the merger that created MISC, CEO Corey Desmond pushed the company to expand its portfolio. The success of the whole series provided financial stability and budget surpluses that Desmond wanted to invest in ships that took the brand beyond the industrial sector. Yet a coalition of board members believed in staying laser focused on industrial ships and forced Desmond to scale back their ambitions to a single design team working on a dedicated racing ship. The result would be Daedalus. Daedalus was developed from the ground up to be extremely fast, a high-performing ship that could endure the rigors of racing. An impressive prototype inspired MISC to sponsor a racing team and share its tech with them, as opposed to releasing the ship itself. The design team disagreed with this decision, but company executives convinced Desmond that a dedicated racing team would provide insight and experience their own designers lacked. While the ship impressed racing fans, Daedalus continually failed to qualify for the professional division of the Murray Cup, a goal that Desmond knew needed to be accomplished in order for the ship to get mass-produced. Experimental materials and production techniques used on Daedalus meant MISC's existing production lines couldn't be used to manufacture the ship, so state-of-the-art production facilities would need to be constructed. Though Daedalus was floundering, the board still considered the racing team a great marketing tool and continued to sponsor it. Desmond officially designated the team that built Daedalus as MISC M and assigned it to be the liaison between the racing team and the company. While delivering upgrades for Daedalus became part of MISC M's working orders, the division was also directed to produce innovative and imaginative new ship designs with no mandate to keep them industrial. Most of these designs would remain theoretical, as the division's minuscule build budget was almost exclusively reserved for testing Daedalus improvements. By now, the division carried a reputation as being where inexperienced designers learned and old designers faded away. In reality, it became a training ground where youngsters honed their craft under the tutelage of veterans who enjoyed the freedom of exploring unique and unusual designs. Decades of constant tinkering on Daedalus increased the ship's performance, with it ultimately graduating to the Mirai Cup professional division in 2898. The MISC racing team has been a regular qualifier ever since. MISC M also developed and carefully cataloged thousands of designs for everything from full ships to components to ship furnishings, but it never ushered any new ships into the prototype phase. Instead, any interesting ship directions were reassigned to other teams where they were molded to acceptable MISC parameters or eventually scrapped. Every few years, some members of the board would argue for shutting down MISC M or folding it into another division, but the majority continued to support its mission. This deep well of innovative and unorthodox ideas would become more important than ever when MISC signed the landmark Lend-Lease agreement with the Xi'an in 2910. Alien influence. Following the agreement signing, MISC quickly put the newfound wealth of knowledge and resources to good use. The Freelancer, released in 2915, utilized Xi'an tech to transform it into the beloved industrial hauler known today. Despite this success, MISC discovered its traditional design teams struggled to integrate Xi'an tech or use its influence to push further innovations. Eventually, the out-of-the-box thinkers of MISC-M were tasked with evaluating the influx of Xi'an ideas and imagining users for them. The division also combed through its massive design database to see what ideas could benefit from Xi'an tech. The first design pulled was for Daedalus. Much had changed since the original Daedalus, but the team saw massive potential in using Xi'an tech to make it fly faster and be cheaper to manufacture. Further upgrades and innovations were developed, but they remained untested until 2940, when MISC decided to pour more money into its racing operations. The company ended its partnership with the outside racing team and tasked MISC-M with building the new ship. The result was the Razor, which would win the Mirai Cup in 2945, thanks in part to the piloting heroics of Trevor Human. Upon its release in 2947, the ship sold extremely well and received rave reviews. The Razor's commercial and Mirai Cup success, combined with the triumphant launch of the Reliant a year earlier, convinced MISC to continue developing bold new ships. The company dramatically increased the funding and staffing levels of MISC-M and directed the team to develop the ideas that excited it the most. Over the following years, CEO Ajay took great interest in MISC-M and frequently visited the division to check on its progress. She encouraged it to embrace MISC values, but refresh the aesthetic. Meanwhile, Ajay told the board that the division had the potential to significantly boost company revenues. Insiders believe she long wanted to make the division its own sub-brand, partially to enshrine its mission and ships as distinctly different from MISC, but didn't want to reveal her plan until it produced a second signature ship. The Fury would be that ship, and inspired CEO Ajay to unveil her master plan. Once approved by the board, the company also decided to make the Razor part of Mirai. It might have been released under MISC, but the ship's history within the division and its ties to the original Daedalus made it an ideal fit. What comes next from MISC's performance sub-brand remains a mystery to anyone outside of the company. Rumors claim that Mirai will push the integration of Xi'an tech to bold new levels, leaving ship enthusiasts and competitors in eager anticipation of what will come next. It is very interesting to me to go from like the whole C or the whole series to the Fury. They could not be any further apart from each other, like in design, language, in functionality, purpose. It is interesting to have that all under one merchant or one builder, right? That was available in the jump points that we discussed like a couple minutes ago. So when this first dropped, I was like, it is a very light week. It's a very light week in the repeating content. But I don't think I read it from the jump point. So now you have it enshrined in Beyond the Verse podcast canon. All right. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast here just in case getting into 323 implodes on me. So if you want to become part of the conversation, feel free to email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. You can respond to our Spotify polls and Q&As at the end of each podcast over on Spotify. Those questions and those answers will be discussed on the following or subsequent episode. And you can join all of our socials at /BTV_cast. You can also join our Blue Sky. That's still growing as a social media platform. Those links are all in bit.ly/m/BTV_cast. Links are in bio. Links are in our socials. But feel free to join us kind of everywhere that we are. And this is available on video replay over on YouTube at /BTV_cast. I hope this finds everybody well. I hope you have a great next week, and we will talk again on Thursday. Safe travels as you traverse Beyond the Verse. Take care, everybody. Now let's see what 323 has in store for us. Cross your fingers. We might get Star Citizened.